What was a fine, I'll do it myself moment for you? At the start of the pandemic I had a cyst growing in my hand. It was so painful I couldn't lower my hand below my chest, or it would be agony. However, because I'm extremely vulnerable, I wasn't able to go to the hospital as the local was on lockdown and completely overflowing with COVID cases. I was just given antibiotics. That did nothing. So one night I'd finally had enough. I'd already had 6 removed in the last year, so knew what the deal was. I woke up at 2 AM in unspeakable pain, said screw it, and dug the thing out myself with some sterilized tweezers, a surgical knife and a bunch load of kitchen towels to mop up the blood. Did it while watching WrestleMania cause it was the only thing on at 2 AM. The next day I called my doctor cause I now had a perfectly circular hole in my hand, but it wasn't deep enough for stitches. Just advised I patch myself up with some plasters, and he sent some more specific antibiotics to my house. He mentioned the cut looked pretty well done, and the cyst was entirely removed, so I thought that was pretty cool. 3/10, just for being able to say I operated on myself, and didn't cause any further complications. 8 years old, was begging my parents to teach me to ride a bike for well over a year, maybe even 2. I felt like the last of my friends to learn, and it was embarrassing. I finally went into my dad's toolbox, that probably weighed as much as I did, and tried about a dozen tools, until I managed to figure out how to take off my little pink training wheels. I spent the next couple weeks non-stop teaching myself how to ride a bike with zero help. Absolutely messed myself up numerous times. No one noticed or cared point, except my friends who were stoked when I finally rolled up on 2 wheels. I'm 30 now, and I weirdly find this to be a pivotal moment of my life. It seems insignificant, but to feel the power of self-sufficiency at 8 was pretty dope, and really built my confidence. I had a group project in college where my group completely flaked, skipped meetings, missed deadlines, never delivered. The day we were meeting to combine all our parts into a single report, no one showed, didn't even email their parts. Turns out, they all planned on writing their parts that day. The day before it's due, they had nothing, and now weren't even going to try. So, screw it, did it all myself. Took all their names off it, added our email chain as an appendix. It wasn't until I was presenting it in front of the class solo that they realized what happened. The very first day home after my second open heart surgery, I was 6 years old, sitting on the kitchen floor playing with my Hot Wheels, and I realized, had to use the bathroom. After being in the hospital for weeks, I was taught I had to be very careful. I was dosed with morphine, and couldn't feel that my sternum, which had been sawed in half, was still healing. I called for my mom to come pick me up and help me to the bathroom. No answer. I called again. Nothing. Well, I'm obviously not peeing my pants. I'm a big girl, damn it. So I very carefully pushed myself to my feet and walked unaided for the first time since my surgery. Freaked my mom out, and she was super apologetic that she couldn't hear me calling. I was working tech support for a company, making $12 an hour, doing internal pre-alpha testing on a new product. I figured out the root cause for the biggest problem keeping the product from working properly, which at the time was threatening the launch of the product. I told the engineer responsible. He ignored me. Later, at an all-hands meeting, when the problem was being discussed, I brought up my findings again in the presence of all involved, including management. The engineer said, "Go get an engineering degree and then tell me how to do my job." Coincidentally, that day happened to be the last day of open enrollment for the next semester at my local university. I quit my job, took out the student loans, and went to school full-time from there. Now I've got an electrical engineering degree and a 6-figure salary doing factory automation with companies like Tesla on my resume. I never did take the time to go back and tell that guy how to do his job. I had an appointment at the dentist to have a rotten tooth removed. I turned up, talked to the dentist. She numbed me up with a local anesthetic and said to with her pliers. She yanked and pulled and yanked some more. Nothing happened. It's worth mentioning that she was very small, maybe 5 feet 1 inch. She said she would see if she could find a stronger colleague. No problem, said I. Let me have a go. Okay. So she put the pliers back on my tooth, and I mumbled and drooled. Are you absolutely sure it's the right one? Yes, she said. so I carefully took hold of the pliers as she released her grip on them. She had another peek in my mouth to ensure they were gripping the correct tooth and nodded. I pulled like hell and my tooth came out. She even gave me a 10% discount off my bill. It's not super crazy, but at 25 years old, I had been saving for a car for years. I was living with my folks and my dad had told me if I save up $2,000 he would help me get a car. I saved it easily, but every time I asked to go look for a car dad would tell me I needed to prove I could hang on to that money, which of course I couldn't, because he was having me pay my medical bills and med costs. I mean, fair enough, I'm an adult, but I was only making $8.50 an hour at the time. Around that time my younger brother graduated from high school. My dad and uncles banded together, bought, and gave him no strings attached an old van. I was livid, so I dragged my dad down to a dealership and bought my first car. Took out a loan and everything. My dad had always tried to stunt me growing up, but I was over being a kid. I was 25 for crying out loud. He was hella pissed because he didn't want me to be in debt, but nuts to that. Now I'm 31, on my second car that I bought brand new and have great credit all because my brother got a free car and I wanted to spite my dad. It's gonna be small, and I don't know if it fits, but teacher had hot chocolate for the students which she would tell people that she lets everyone have some. Bad thing is that in reality she only actually let her favorite students have any and would actively say no to a select few kids it was clear she didn't like. I was one of those favorites, but would actively choose not to have any. One day a kid asked if they could have some, and she decided to yell at the kid, "Bring some yourself." So I, like the smartest I'm, decided if she won't share then I will, and the next day I brought some pouches of hot cocoa and shared with the kids I knew she didn't like. Hot cocoa was not given to anyone after this event. When I was a kid I was told that I wouldn't make the high school varsity team. I did. I was told that my baseball life would end there. It didn't. Then as a freshman college, I was told that this was the end of the baseball line. It wasn't. I know some people get discouraged by negativity, but sometimes it builds such a big chip on your shoulder that you have no other option but to carry the burden and wear it like a badge of honor. A friend and I went to a concert at the old Gillette Stadium. It was chaos getting out of there. We moved maybe 50 feet in over an hour. So, I got out of the car and had a look around. There was some temporary fencing, and we figured if we rammed it with the car, it would open up another conduit to get to the exit quickly. At the time I was driving this styled Ford and didn't really care what happened to it. So, I got back into the car, said to my friend, "Are you ready?" and drove straight into the fence. It came down easily. We started our own path to the exit and were on the highway in 10 minutes. There was literally a path of cars behind me once I took the fence out. We got back to my friend's house, went to sleep, and I inspected the car. When I got up the next day, the only damages to the car were 2 small scratches on the front bumper, which were just in addition to the numerous other scratches already there. 10/10ths would ram a fence with my car again. Getting through severe depression, 2 hideously bad therapists, a couple horrible pastors, fundamentalist awfulness. Finally I just said F it, I'll do it myself, and got a job as a janitor and clung to it for 2 years, just so I could prove to myself that I could stick with something. While I was there, a reporter who got to know me told me that I should go to college. After reading a humorous note I wrote about not vacuuming, vacuum broke, so I did, and I was good at it. And though I have struggled with anxiety and taken antidepressant, I have never had severe depression again. This happens a lot at work. I work at FedEx, so we move a lot of boxes. I don't load trailers anymore since I got a promotion, but I move special boxes around the building. The boxes we move could be anything from a corrosive material to a bed frame to a carpet. We have 5 areas we move those boxes to. There was one area that no one was covering because of the amount of flow going there. So I looked at everyone around me not covering it, disappointed in them for not doing their jobs. We had the people, but the guy originally covering it left because it was too hard that day, and I stepped up and took care of it. I'm still the only person covering it, seeing as how every time I leave it everyone tries to leave it again. PS. No, I don't know where your packages are. I lose mine there too. wrote a peer-reviewed medical paper that got published, and is currently heavily cited on Women Plus Mental Health Plus Estrogen. My doctor said, if depression related to hormones there was nothing you could do about it. My response went to bed and wrote and published this research. I'm not a medical specialist, just a scientist. This was a pivotal moment for me. I now try things that I believe should be investigated. My latest is reviewing literature on alcoholism and gut microflora. I made a info video on it. I think it's crazy medical doctors don't understand the implications of microflora on addiction. This was after a trip to a doctor's office to have stitches removed. The stitches were on the chin from a sports accident. This was a first thing in the morning appointment, so I could get to work on time. My primary care physician walks into the office sniffling and coughing, pre-pandemic, and really looks miserable. While he's busy on me, he calls his secretary to cancel the rest of his appointments for the day. The guy really looks miserable. He's distracted and about to turn around and go home and crawl in bed. I don't think much more about it until after work. A sports buddy who was there for the accident says, I thought you were getting the stitches out today. A moment and a mirror later it turns out yes, some of the stitches are still there. The physician had clipped at the knot, but failed to take them all out. There will be a few days delay if I schedule a new appointment. Friends remark that the stitches are tight already and they'll leave a scar from the delay. So after getting home that evening I say F it, sterilize and implement with a flame, and solve the problem myself. Now I have the stupid, badass accomplishment of having removed stitches from my own face. A Swiss Army knife truly can solve nearly anything. Not that it matters, but I'm a woman. Wife was involved in a scooter accident. She ended up in the air with a split chin and some other minor injuries. She was very lucky all things considering. Doc came in and started to clean out her chin to prep for stitches. It wasn't a super well lit room at all. Half the lights were off and there were plenty of shadows. So as he started to get his instruments I asked if he was able to see. Of course. He reassured me. Not sure why half the lights are out, but I'll be just fine. As I watched him stitch up my wife's face he was squinting and getting really close etc. Because well it was hard to see. So I said F it. It's my wife's face and he's going to have the best visibility available. I flip on my phone's flashlight, walked over and shined it right at my wife's chin. He stopped squinting instantly, thanked me and finished up in about 10 minutes. The sewer line under our house was failing because it had deteriorated. We had 3 estimates, $2,750 to put a liner in part of it, $3,250 to put a liner in most of it, and $8,000 to dig it out under our wood and slate floors and replace the run with PVC. That included no repairs to the floors afterwards. Just concrete over the opening. My buddy told me I could do it myself for under $1,000. He lent me his electric jackhammer and a saw that I used to cut the concrete. I started at 4 o'clock on a Friday right around this time last year. I set up a canopy behind the back door where I was dumping all the concrete and dirt that I dug out. It had snowed 2 days earlier so there was about 6 inches of snow on the ground still. I dug out the entire pipe, including a run to an old toilet drain that shot off to the side, and went up the wall. I was finally at the point on Sunday at noon, where I put an angle grinder to the pipe and started cutting. The point of no return. I removed the horizontal and vertical lines in short order. I measured and cut the new PVC, dry fit it all, and checked levels. Started gluing around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Had everything tied back together by sunset, went to work the next day, got off work, and went back to refilling the trench. Wrapped up by Wednesday, except for resetting the slate which I had to wait on due to back order. Saved $8K. The kicker was that there was a massive stone set right against the pipe, where the drain crew said the deterioration was. Turns out, that stone had somehow deformed the pipe. No damage, just an oval instead of a circle, and, well, would clog up right there. If we had had a liner put in, the problem would have actually ended up worse than before. All told, I put in $800 in supplies and materials. I gave my buddy $100 for the encouragement and letting me use his tools. So I put 5 days plus another to set tile to save my $7.1K and ended up with a better fix than I would have had.